Driving, music's blaring in my ears. Engines roaring, the horizon's drawing near. Pedal to the floor, no more feet in the door. Gonna drive right out of this bitter night. I'm a constant seeker in Converse sneakers.
Welcome to Nonprofit Insider. My name is David Unger, and I'm pleased to be hosting a live radio show with executive directors and key people of local nonprofits. I myself have worked in the nonprofit world for over 30 years. In those years, I've realized that the majority of the community does not know about the organizations that provide critical services and benefits to our community that we sometimes take for granted. Nonprofit Insider is a chance to hear about the organizations that touch so many in our community. The opinions expressed in Nonprofit Insider are not necessarily those of WMPG, its staff and underwriters, or of USM. Before we get started, I just want to let everybody know that I'll be going down to visit Frankie this weekend on Sunday, so we're really excited about that. Joining us today is Liz Heltzer. Did I pronounce that right?
It was pretty close. Helitzer.
Helitzer. Okay. I apologize for that.
No, it's okay.
Liz is the executive director of the Holocaust Human Rights Commission. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Well, the Holocaust Human Rights Commission, that's a pretty heavy organization, isn't it?
Yeah. It can be at times.
Yeah.
It can be at
So
times.
why don't you tell us a little bit about it and what you do?
Sure. So the Holocaust and Human Rights Center of Maine is located on the campus of the University of Maine at Augusta in a great building called the Michael Clark Center. And we're open Monday through Friday from 10 to 4. And the mission of our organization is that we use the lessons of the Nazi Holocaust and other genocides to combat prejudice and discrimination in Maine and beyond. And we encourage individuals and communities to reflect and act upon their ethical and moral responsibilities in our modern world. And we do that in 5 major ways. We do that through compelling programming, rotating exhibition, free educational outreach, special events, and teacher training. And whenever possible, we try to offer that for free. So,
Whenever possible.
Whenever possible. We are a nonprofit. You know, there are budgetary concerns.
So, based on the number of free programs and services that you offer, what are some of the issues that you think that I know you face, but what would they be?
In terms of continuing to provide free programming? Well, one of our challenges, and I don't think it's a unique challenge, although for us it's a more recent challenge, is with fundraising. But let me give a little backstory. Like I said, we've been in a pretty unique position for quite a few years, where we've had an angel donor who's been supporting between 50 and 75% of our operating budget. And so, unlike many other nonprofits, we haven't had to do much fundraising in the past. And now, I'd say in the last 2 years, we've really had an explosion of programming, exhibition, all aimed at really attacking our mission and broadening our reach. And we've been working to expand our revenue, the types of revenue that we receive. And part of the reason for that is because it's just healthy to do that.
Right.
And then the other piece is because our angel donor is now ready to see us thrive independently, supported broadly by a wide range of individuals and organizations who believe, as she does and as do our many supporters and our board of directors, that the Holocaust and Human Rights Center of Maine is a relevant and necessary organization.
What would happen if you close your doors?
Oh, gosh. I don't like to think about that.
No, I know we don't like to think about
question.
that, but how would the community be impacted?
Well, like I said, one of the things that we really do is encourage individuals to not only reflect but act upon their ethical and moral responsibilities. And so whether you come to the center or you have us come to your school or your venue for a community program, we're constantly reminding and emphasizing that it's really important to choose to participate in your community, in your world. And what I mean by that is that if you see something, some form of injustice occurring, it's better to figure out what you can do to help prevent that injustice from continuing. And so we're a really good reminder of that. Our programming, our exhibition, our outreach is a really good reminder of that. And so I think it's important that we keep that piece of it alive. But also when we're discussing this, we need historical context. And so we use the Holocaust, the civil rights movement, other genocides and human rights abuses as our historical case study when explaining why it's important to act in your community.
Do you see issues growing, decreasing, staying the same?
I would say that it seems like a lot of the issues are still very present. You probably know, being down here in Portland, about the graffiti on at the halal market, and so there are still issues not only in the world but right here in Maine, and that's why one of the reasons why it's so important that our center exists, so that there's somewhere where you can talk, or at least one place you can go where you can talk about these issues, and that there's an organization reminding individuals and communities of their personal responsibilities, that injustice, we use this quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. a lot, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And that, I think that's a really important thing to remember.
Very powerful.
And realize that we all have a part in that.
So you've been with the center for 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say has been your most significant aha moment?
Well, can I give two?
I don't know. Deb, can she give two? Okay.
Deb said yes.
If Deb's in charge.
I feel like she's the mastermind.
She
here,
is. She's in charge.
She says okay. So the two I'll give. So we provide free educational outreach, and the educational outreach we currently provide, we really revamped it in the past 2 years. And we were trying to figure out because you hear the phrase, you've got to teach the lessons of the Holocaust. That's a pretty common phrase. Right. And so we sat down and we thought, well, which of the many lessons do we want to teach? And what we decided was that, we didn't come up with this discovery, but we felt it was important to talk about the roots. And one root cause that we attack is this idea of the other. Whether it's with the Holocaust or the civil rights movement, when you put a group of people into the category of other for whatever reason, and in a long enough way, it becomes really easy to dehumanize them. Mm-hmm. And you can even go so far, as we know, as to murder them. And so we decided, okay, that's what we want to talk about. And the parallel, and one of the reasons why we put it in there, the parallel is that in schools with bullying, the root cause is their kids putting other kids into the category of other for whatever reason. And so that parallel that exists between the root causes of genocide and the bullying we see in schools, we thought that was really important to talk about. The aha moment came when we started going into schools started to visit us, and after the program, teachers would come up to us and say, I didn't realize, but I do that. I put people into the category of other.
Right.
And so there was this surprising, exciting moment of realizing that we weren't just talking to the students. We're really talking to anyone who's in the room, including teachers, parents who are there. And it's such a great reminder And I feel so fortunate to be there all the time and thinking injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, and this idea of the other, to be constantly reminded of that so that we can all work on being kinder to each other and helping our communities out. That was one.
Okay.
I have another one. But,
go for it.
Oh, I can?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Deb's nodding.
Oh, yay. All right. So that was one of the aha moments. Another aha moment is connected to the exhibits that we're doing. And this I really have to credit our program director, David Greenham.
The one who didn't show up.
The one who did. He had very good reasons.
I'm not doubting
He's
that.
wonderful. I'm not going to say anything negative about him ever. So we decided to put into place rotating exhibition. So we do about 3 exhibits a year. And what Dave started thinking about and what we started talking about was that we didn't simply want to be doing an exhibit about some event far away. Whatever exhibit we do, we try and connect it to Maine. So for instance, right now we have an exhibit, well, it closes today, an exhibit called Nor Ashkar, Armenians in the Century After Genocide. And it tells the history of the Armenian genocide. This is the 100th anniversary of the Armenian genocide. So it shares that important history, but it also is a celebration of Armenian culture right here in Maine. There's a big Armenian,
right.
I don't know if you knew that, but we didn't know before we did the exhibit, but there's a big Armenian community right here in Maine. And so what's been so wonderful in this aha moment is making these connections between important topics we want to talk about and Maine, and learning that there are all these new organizations and partners out there who we get to talk with and share, parts of their stories with the greater community. And that's been great.
We have to take our midpoint identifier now, and at this point in time, I do ask my weekly trivia question.
Ugh, I'm not excited, but go ahead.
Someone actually said, what was it, 2 weeks ago? You're trying to embarrass me, aren't you?
See, yeah, I agree with that person.
Okay, but you haven't even heard the question.
No, okay, go for it. I'm very excited now.
So I'll ask you the question. I'll go to my midpoint identifier, then you can give me the answer.
Okay.
All right, ready? Between October 18, 1945 and October 1st, 1946, what happened? This is David Unger on Nonprofit Insider. This is listener-supported WMPG 90.9 and 104.1 FM community radio of Southern Maine and Eastern New Hampshire. There's a silence here.
Can I ask some, where in the world?
Doesn't matter.
No, anywhere in the world, what happened then?
A significant event happened between October 18th, 1945 and October 1st, 1946.
Okay. During that time period, my mother turned 4.
That's not the answer. But
that's significant.
That's significant, but that's not the answer that I picked up.
I care, though. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here if you hadn't made it.
I understand.
Okay,
between October 18th, 1945 and October 1st, 1946, the International Military Tribunal tried 22 major war criminals on charges of crime against humanity. Peace, war crimes, conspiracy to commit such crimes. The IMT defined crimes against humanity as murder, extermination, enslavement, deportation, or persecutions on political, racial, or religious grounds. 12 of those convicted were sentenced to death, and the balance were sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. The Nuremberg
trials. Yeah, yeah. That would probably count as slightly more significant than my
Not for you.
mom's birthday.
Not for you.
Yeah.
But, unless you actually begin studying history and understand the whole big picture of what the Holocaust actually meant, puts it into a whole different perspective for so many different people.
Right. And that's the other piece of what would happen if the door is closed.
Right.
I remember, part of when we're talking about the Holocaust, we make sure to mention that this isn't simply a Jewish event, that there were, in addition to 6 million Jews being murdered, 5 million Jehovah's Witnesses, homosexuals, people with physical and mental disabilities, and many others who were considered lesser, inferior to the Nazis were also targeted. And I remember being at Oxford Middle School and mentioning some of these other groups that were targeted. And a young girl in the back, I saw her suddenly sit up straight. And she came up to me during a break and she said, "My family's Jehovah's Witnesses. I had no idea that there was this connection." And so it's so important to, unfortunately, there's a universality with it. It's again this idea of some people being deemed as lesser.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
And I've told the listeners several times that I was the executive director of the Jewish Community Alliance of Southern Maine. So Holocaust education, it has always been a really critical part of my professional career.
Mm-hmm.
And when I moved to Maine, it was very intriguing to me that the Holocaust Human Rights Center was not affiliated religiously with the Jewish community, where in most communities it is, that you really have taken this generic approach to Maine's problems and tied in with the world's problems. And the Holocaust is just one piece of that.
Yeah, we're very much the Holocaust and Human Rights Center of Maine. And I always have our mission at the forefront of my mind. And so that's what the guiding force is, that tells us what kind of programming it makes sense for us to do, what kind of education it makes sense to do. And I think there's a big value in talking about these issues as a human rights issue, as opposed to an issue that's solely connected to one group, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's the hardest thing you've had to do as an executive director since you've taken on?
The hardest thing. Well, I mentioned that we're at this point now where our angel donor is ready to see us thrive independently. And so
the training wheels are off.
So the training wheels are off. And so but maybe I'm a little crazy. I see it as a really exciting challenge. What we're doing is we've established an endowment fund campaign with a goal of raising or receiving in pledges $3 million in the next almost 2 years. Our fiscal year goes from April 1 to March 31st. So the hope is that we'll have received in pledges and actual donations $3 million for this endowment fund by April of 2017. And so it's a challenge, and I would say it's a big challenge, but it's also exciting to have this opportunity to really think, well, who should we be talking about this organization with? And getting to go out and meet new people and new groups and hopefully get them excited about what we're doing.
That's an exciting project. So why would anybody want to give?
Well,
we had asked the consultants on a couple weeks ago. We talked about the case for support and telling your story and everything.
Yeah.
So what's your story? I mean, you've been telling it, but if you had 30 seconds to talk to me about a gift, what would you say to me?
I would say the second half of our mission statement is that we encourage individuals and communities to reflect and act upon their ethical and moral responsibilities in our modern world.
I'm going to drill as a
You're
consultant.
going to drill.
Yeah.
Oh.
What does that mean?
And so what that means is in everything we do, we are asking and encouraging people to choose to participate, to act when they see something bad occurring.
What do you mean by act?
Well, I hit the table. That was the thing I wasn't supposed to do.
You won't tell anybody.
Okay. That depends. It depends on the situation. And so if it's something smaller that you feel like you can just say something to someone. If someone says a belittling joke about someone else or a group of people, an easy way to act would be to say, I don't know if you realize that, but that actually might offend someone.
Right.
You know? And there's this great teaching tool we have called the Pyramid of Hate. And it shows the 5 steps leading up to genocide, with the 5th step being genocide. The first 2 steps are prejudice attitudes and prejudice behaviors. And so that means things like social exclusion, social avoidance, ridicule, telling belittling jokes, not challenging belittling jokes. And really, in our day-to-day lives, those are the 2 pieces that we encounter the most. And so what we tell students, and adults as well, is that when you see things occurring in those 2, that fall under those 2 categories, you can say something about that.
Right.
And those are direct ways, because the next steps, step 3 is discrimination, step 4 is violence, step 5 is genocide. If you eliminate those first 2 steps, you don't have to worry about getting to the other 3.
Absolutely. And it's very, very small things.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I'm going to use a derogatory statement on air.
Ooh,
So
okay.
I'm going to say it, and that's my disclaimer. Is Deb listening? Because she's going to have to cut off the airwaves. So I'm going to use a derogatory statement that people don't even realize is derogatory.
Yeah.
So when you say, I gypped somebody,
Right.
okay, that's a derogatory statement against
Right.
gypsies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And, people, it's just everyday language for so many different
Right.
people. So it's a matter of just saying, do you realize that someone could be hurt by that?
Exactly. Exactly. So when we say act, we don't mean you need to go to Syria and end the civil war. We mean in your do something like that. If someone uses a phrase that's derogatory, you can simply say, I don't know if you knew that that was the
Right.
source of this word. And by saying that, and when you say the phrase, I gypped someone, you're perpetuating
Yes.
that
And even
stereotype.
in terms of mental retardation.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't call anybody retarded.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So-
So it's that constant reminder that we're all people. It's real. Our words really matter.
Absolutely. So if someone does want to make a donation to this $3 million campaign,
Yeah.
how would they do that?
Well, I would say get in touch with us, and it's easy to find us. Our website is hhrcmaine.org, and that's Maine like the state. And if you go on there, you can find my contact info, you can find where we're located, our address, our phone number, and ask any and all questions.
And I'm sure there's a donate button somewhere.
There's a donate button on the website as well.
Right.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
So do you have any questions you want to ask me? I've been asking you some pretty intense questions.
Oh, well, what's your favorite part about doing this radio show?
It really allows me, well, Deb, of course. I mean, that's it, point blankly.
Yeah.
Thank you, David.
One, it gives me an opportunity to meet different people and to learn different things about different organizations. I mean, I've been in the nonprofit world in Maine since '96.
Yeah.
And I had a guest on a couple weeks ago that offers services to nonprofits that I had no idea. So one of the clients I'm working with now is definitely taking him up on it.
Yeah. Oh, great.
But it also gives me an opportunity to allow organizations like you to tell their story, which doesn't happen very often. It's
Yeah.
always in an appeal letter or a quick, sound bite or something. But give you a half an hour of open air time just to tell your story in your words.
That's great.
It means a lot to me in so many different ways. So it's my way of giving back.
Oh, well, great. That works out well.
If you had to change one thing in Maine, what would it be?
Oh, gosh.
That wasn't on the questions I sent
No.
you either.
I would say rather than change, I would say continue. It would be a continuation of what is happening. We have a lot of new Mainers coming in, refugees, asylees, immigrants, and I would say that this is it's a wonderful thing. It's so wonderful to be having all these new communities and individuals here, and so. I don't know if I'd say the word change, but I would just say continue moving in the direction of embracing all the people who live here,
Yeah.
and especially all the new people who are coming in from places of conflict, or for whatever reason it is that has led those individuals here.
I'm going to ask you a loaded question. It's at the end of the show, so there isn't a lot of time.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but do you think the school districts do a good job helping with that? Or are there more barriers put up by them? In general.
I can't give a blanket answer to that. There are so many schools in Maine, and I think so many different approaches. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a blanket answer for that.
Okay.
I think what I'm hearing more, the times that I hear it spoken about, it's mostly in the positive of my daughter goes to a school and there are 41 different languages spoken there. And how great is that?
That is really good.
You know? Maybe I block out any of the bad things. We certainly hear about struggles that schools are having embracing new students. So mostly I think it's just about reminding as many people as we can that it's best to embrace.
And Portland still, even though it has problems in growing and everything else, it still is fairly good on that scale overall, that it embraces so many different people and languages.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
I hope this was helpful and our folks got to know a little bit about what you do and the work. Next week, we're going to have Nancy Grant. Nancy's the Executive Director of the Bicycle Coalition of Maine. The music appears courtesy of Mike Hubbard. You can find Mike's music on www.michaelhubbardmusic.com. Check out Mike's website to see where he's playing this weekend. Thanks to Deb Danger, our ace engineer, crackerjack star person. You can catch Deb on Morning Street Fridays at 6:30 in the morning. If you know of a nonprofit that should be on the show, please email me at mpi@davidunger.net or go to our Facebook page. Deb's pointing at something.
And how can we get in touch with our guest? I'd like to hear that again.
Oh, the best way to get in touch is visiting us online at hhrcmaine.org. And that's Maine like the state.
Thank you very much.
And past shows are archived at www.tcmgr.com NP Insider tab. And until next week, enjoy the music of Mike.
And be sure to stay tuned for a Zvuki Rusi at 1:30, music of Mother Russia and neighboring countries, starring our tour.
But I know